Alright, what I got here is a 3-cylinder G10 engine that this one's for a Geo Metro, but it also is the same exact one for Chevy Metro, Geo Metro, and the Chevrolet Sprint and Suzuki Swift. I think all use the same engine according to the book that I got. It's a 3-cylinder, 1-liter engine. I think it makes like 55 horsepower or something, full top end. And this one is going to get a full rebuild. I've already had all the machining done. Had a full machine job done on it, boarded over, you know, honed it, whatever all processes they got to do. Head, same thing. All new valves, you know, cleaned it all up, decked it, whatever they got to do. I got the crankshaft in here. Oil pan. This is a spare head that I had put on a different engine previously. I got the flywheel, and I got my gaskets, more parts, spark plugs, wires, you name it. And we're going to see about putting it back together. Alright, so just a disclaimer, I am not a professional engine builder. I am a hobbyist. I typically do small engines, which you can get away with a lot more as far as putting them back together. I'm going to do the best I can here, but this is not necessarily a how-to. It's more of just what I'm doing. You know, whereas a car engine has to run for tens of thousands of hours, you know, a lawnmower you might run for, you know, an hour a week. So you can get away with a lot more as far as screw-ups and everything else. But I know the basics. I've done them before, and I'll just show you what it takes. I'm not sure how I'm going to go about this video. I don't think it's going to really be a how-to video, more of just watching what I'm going to do, how I put together mine. First thing I'm going to do is clean up these cylinder bores, because the guy that machined it, he's already honed it and finished it. I don't have to do a thing with it myself. He's got a good crosshatch pattern in there. And but he mentioned that ATF is the perfect thing to clean it with. It really gets in the pores of the metal and gets the last of the remnants out. Cleanliness is number one on these automotive engines. They just run so many hours, you just really have to have them right. I'm just trying to get it all wetted down first, and then I'll take a clean dry one and get the rest. Oh, I've already got ATF on my brand new paint job. He even painted the outside of this. Pretty impressive. It is an aluminum block with steel cylinders or steel liners, but I was surprised to see that he took the time and painted all that. Really makes it look professional, though. When you go to pick it up, it kind of gives you a good feeling the guy knows what he's doing. Then everything he did looks just beautiful. try to get you a close-up of the crosshatch pattern he's got going in there. You want those crosshatches in there, and that helps retain the oil onto the cylinder. Crosshatch pattern, to describe it, it's some on an angle this way, some on an angle this way. And if you catch the light just right, you can see those very fine micro scratches. You do not want a polished surface there. Polished surface won't hold any oil and your rings will just disintegrate. Now for the purists, you might not want to watch this next part. I'm going to turn it upside down and lay it on the finished head surface. Oh no. Truth is, I got several layers of paper towels down here. It's making a nice pad, so normally you wouldn't want to do that, is what I'm getting at. Alright, I'm going to take these main caps off and clean up the insides of those bearing areas, and then I think we can set the crankshaft. Just making sure I don't have any, not even one little booger in there. Because if you do, let's say you had something sitting there, it would hold that bearing that we're going to put in there up off the surface and create havoc real quick. And these are directional. They have a arrow pointing to the flywheel side. The bearing halves, some of them have the hole, some of them don't. Obviously the ones with the hole will go and line up where that oil hole is so the oil can get to the bearing. That would be a terrible mistake if you did that one. I'm going to get you over here a little closer so you can see from a top view. So there's a little notch in the block, notch in your bearing, you line those up. This one I didn't get to sit down just right. And I'm real hesitant to tap on it. So I'm going to try to get it back up by pulling. There we go. These and the rod bearings are probably the most critical bearings that you could screw up in the engine because there's just so much movement there. the last thing you'd want to do is screw these up. This is a very low performing engine, so probably not as critical as something producing a lot of power or with boost or whatever, but still, you don't want to make it go bad prematurely. And as far as the lower bearings, or the other half of the bearing, same thing. You got a notch. You got a notch here. You got a dimple there for the notch, for the piece to go in. Put them in. Make sure these ends are perfectly lined up, or else you don't have it in all the way. Another thing I want to mention is sometimes you want to just double check your engine guy. For example, he ordered the kit for me, which was kind of nice. Some of them don't. But if you look on here, it just says STD standard. Just make sure you order the right stuff. If he told you he had to bore them over, then that's fine. But otherwise, maybe try to double check your parts if they do have, measurements like that. Like it might say plus 010 or something if they had to bore your line bore, I guess you call that. And just kind of double check to see, maybe, if you see something that doesn't look right, give them a call, show them what you got, and maybe they ordered and or shipped the wrong thing. And this one didn't go in quite like I like it. That one also didn't see. I got it proud here. It's sitting up just a little bit. All right. Now I got the crankshaft. Again, it's been completely gone over, ground, rebuilt, polished, whatever you got to do. They look at the sealing surfaces here. They polish all the journals. They measure everything. So I should be good to go, but I'm gonna put the plastic gauge in there and just make sure that we're good. I'm not gonna lube these yet because we want to make sure we got the clearances before we get it all goopy with engine assembly lube. And now I've got to look up the specification. If you've never seen plastic gauge, there's different ranges: 04 to 09, 02 to 06, 025 to 076, and 001 to 003. So I'm going to see which one's appropriate by looking up the general idea of where these should be, and then I'll pull some out and show you how to use this. Here's a little interesting tidbit for you. So I got the Haynes repair manual. Guess I should turn it, huh? Got the Haynes repair manual. It has all the information you need to rebuild. It says engines, and it does not have. It has, the firing order, cam lobe clearance, all that. I won't even need any cam stuff because my rebuilder's already done that for me. Oil pump clearances. But no, and torque specifications, which we're going to need. That's critical. You got to torque engines you got to torque the fasteners on an engine like this properly, because it's going to be started and stopped literally tens of thousands of times. So heat, cool cycles will affect things, and you have to get them right. But here's what's interesting: the I got the book from Chilton's, same car, and they do have all the specifications of every single thing you're going to need. So I thought that was kind of poor on Haynes this time. Alright, next I'm going to measure the clearances on the main bearings. It's critically important, so I'm going to double check, even though, you know, I already had the machine shop go through everything. Let's just check it just to make sure this stuff comes cheap and it's easy to do. Basically, you cut a piece. What plastic gauge is, it's a little filament of plastic that's a certain exact size. You cut the piece to the length you need, you place it on there, you put your bearing cap on there, tighten it down to factory spec, and then you take it back off, and you measure by using this gauge, whether it be the millimeter or the inch side, how much that's squished out. The less clearance, the more it'll squish, and you can measure that amount of squish on this gauge. And you just want them all to be within the specifications. So I'm just going to cut a piece about the same width as the bearing here. Try to open this up. I probably could have cut a long piece because I need 4 of them, but inside here is the tiniest little filament, and I believe I just lost that one. There it is. Don't know if you can even see that on camera. It's just a little filament. It's like a little mini hot glue gun stick or something, and you just place that right on top of the cap. Or not the cap, the bearing journal. I'm going to just run these down first. And I'll do all those, and then we'll tighten them to spec. And anytime you're tightening down bolts, it's good to go like halfway on each, and then go for your final torque. Or if it's way up there, you might want to go, if it's a real high spec, you might want to go, you know, if it's like 100 or something, you might want to go in 3 steps. I'm just going 20, and the final on these is 40. And that's not a click type torque wrench I'm using, it's a beam type. That click you're hearing is just the bolt friction. Kind of hard to hold the thing because it's so small and light. Usually you'd have this on a stand, but this engine's so light, it's kind of beyond the realm of needing a stand. Alright, got them all to 40. Let's snap them all back off. Should use that to pry it off a little bit. There we go. Now, what you should have is, you know, a nice clean bearing, and then the smushed plastic gauge. And you take the measurement tool. You can take a small piece, a little piece. Small piece probably works better because I can curve it to get it in there, right? And so we're going to measure, line it up, and whichever measurement gauge is the closest one, that's your clearance. That's how much you have in between there. I'm going to go on the millimeter side here because my book is absolutely inaccurate on the decimal point of the inch one. So I'm going to say it's on the millimeter one, 0.051. The next one is 0.038. That's too small. And 0.076 is on the other side. It's just a hair bigger than that. So I'm going to say we're like 0.06 or something like that on that one. And we're going to just check them all the same way. Make sure they're all in spec. Okay, on this engine, those are all almost exactly the same as the others, which means the machine shop did their job. Also, that verifies that I've put both the upper and the lower main bearing caps in properly, the bearings themselves, not the caps. If they weren't, you might see the plastic gauge on one side smushed out more than this side. Then you would know it was, you know, it was flipped one way or the other. If it was, you know, heavier on here and goes to taper lighter, you had that thing sitting on an angle or something was wrong there. Maybe the machine shop messed up, you don't know. So you're just double checking them. Now what you got to do is you just got to get all of that off. And then once I do, I'll bring you back. Alright, I got all the plastic gauge off both the crankshaft and the bearings inside the cap there. And now I'm going to put some engine assembly lube. You could probably get away with the engine oil, but the first few seconds of startup is real critical, and this stuff is like half glue, half, you know, I don't know if this brand's any good or whatever, but basically it's kind of like glue and lubricant mixed together. It's super sticky. It will not run out. So even if you're not going to run this engine right away, you probably want to use the assembly lube to prevent problems on startup. And you can see, hopefully, the amount of tackiness that has. That'll stay put. That won't run out of there before you your oil pump gets a chance to get some flow going. And my hand is fairly clean. Do not, even one little bit of dirt in there is gonna just kill those things right away. Do not get them dirty. Because you're going to be spinning this thing over, putting in the pistons and lining up the timing marks and, you know, things later on. So you want some lubrication in here before the oil pump will ever see flow. And I'm going to do the insides of the bearings here. These bearings, I'm going to lay them right side up now. You don't need a ton, just coat the surface, right? And like I say, that stuff is, can you hear that? It's got things that make it very tacky. Just for a little added insurance, I'm going to put some on here, on the journals themselves. And just for a little added insurance, I put some on the journals themselves. Not that that wouldn't be enough that's on the bearing, but I did it just for insurance. Okay, and then these are the thrust bearings. One goes here, one goes here. That's on the number 3 cap. And to keep those in there, while I'm putting them in there, well, maybe they'll just stay. I was going to say I'm going to put some assembly lube on the backside, but that's probably a really, really bad idea for 50 reasons. But I will again put some on the face of them. That goes to the wear side. And I'm going to make sure I get the crankshaft, the mating surface that would run on, which is here, which is a machine surface. There we go. Now we're ready to throw their crankshaft in. Okay. Put the caps on. Very critical they face the proper way. Everything's been machined as an assembly. If you so much as flip that around, you'd be making a mistake. Run these in. Now we go with the torque wrench. Should have tightened those up a little more by hand, just to save time. Or with the power tool, I meant. Really shakes the reading on the thing when it does that snapping motion. And I don't put oil on them unless they say oiled to get the right torque reading. It will change with oil, and unless it's specified for use with oil, I don't do it. I'm just going to hit them all one more time to make sure I haven't forgotten one. That one was right on the edge and not quite tight enough. Whoop, hit you there. Okay, now let's see if she spins. It does indeed spin. Now I'm just going to rotate this by hand just to see how that feels. See if it feels even all the way around. If you feel any kind of dragging, now would be the time to take that back apart. And that feels really good. Okay, so the bearings that control the end play, those little half moon pieces I put in, there's always end play. I don't know if you can hear this. There's always just a hair. Of course, you have to have your oil in between the part that's rotating and the part that's staying still, the bearing. There's several ways to measure it. The proper way is to get a dial indicator and probably put it on the end here. And you pull it one way and then you push it the other way and you watch your dial figure out where it goes. What I've got, because I don't have a dial indicator handy here, especially one that would work on aluminum, or I guess you'd have to hold it because most of them are magnetic, is it's a depth gauge. It's used for measuring, like if you wanted to measure how far the bottom of that hole was from, you know, from whatever, then you get a readout on your dial indicator here. I'm going to put it on the end of the cap here. I'm going to pull the bearing, pull the crankshaft towards me. I keep saying camshaft. And then I can take a measurement right when it touches, which is right there, and then I'll push it in, take another measurement, do that a couple times back and forth, and see if I got my proper end play. So I measured out the crankshaft end play, and we got about 3 or 4 thousandths, so we're within spec on that. Let's continue on.